Hello, greeting, my dear community. If this is your first time visiting my channel, I want to welcome you. My name is Wei-Jen, and in today's video, I'm going to teach you guys how to deal with loneliness and abandonment, these feelings. So, this is something that I lately experienced this week, and I have some new steps and then ways that I want to share with you guys how I personally deal with the feeling of loneliness and abandonment. For some of you may know from my previous video that you watched, I grew up in this dysfunctional alcoholic family hood. So feeling of being abandoned is very common to me when I talk about the old self, right? Before I started my spiritual awakening journey in probably 2019 or 18, and then I started my personal transformation journey. I used to be this person that I felt so abandoned, and I had to go out to seek for validation and approval, affection, and love for outside um, my inner world. So I could feel a little bit better about myself. So I could feel that I could breathe. I could feel that I had oxygen to go through my day. But since I started my spiritual awakening journey, the frequency of feeling of being abandoned and the loneliness through time to time, as I am practicing in my spiritual awakening journey, the frequency has been declined. But that does not mean that it's going to completely go away, because this is a life journey and, it requires 24/7 consciousness, even though it's very difficult to do to live our life day by day with full full consciousness, right? But I get to do the best that I can. So, you know, now this feeling of being abandoned or abandonment or loneliness comes back to me not very often, maybe like once or twice or maybe 3 or 4 times, every 6 months or a year to a year. I would have this feeling, and I must say that, it feels still very familiar, that I could easily slip into this, feelings that we're talking about, whether it's loneliness or abandonment. Um, However, I joined some retreat program that is focusing on recovering and healing from childhood trauma and adulthood trauma. And that also includes my wounded relationship with my parents. So up until today, I feel that, when every time I have these feelings come to me, I look at these moments as an opportunity and invitation to heal myself in a deeper level than before, even though I've been working on it, for some years, but still it is an invitation for me to go deeper for my healing and recovered from those childhood and adulthood trauma. So the first step that I want to teach you guys it's about awareness. So I remember that a few nights ago, I had this um, feeling came to me, and it seemed like, it came out of nowhere. But then I sat with it. That was my conscious mind, that I made this choice that I was going to sit with it, regardless how discomfortable I felt, right? And when I sat with it, I decide I was going to use my awareness, and that could be, just simply sit there and doing nothing or meditation. I remember what I did, to sit with it is through journaling. So I wrote down all the thoughts, all the drama, all the wounds, the victimhood dialogues that coming from my ego, my little devil, right? That part of me that wounded me, right? I wrote them all down on my notebook. And it's a way that I started to could feel that, okay, these are the voices that were inside, within me in my head, that I could not uh, force these voice to go outside of my head, outside of my mind, right? Because the more that I resist all these voices and negative, thoughts and patterns, right? The more they were sticking with me, stronger than ever. So I decided I'm going to release those on my notebook. So that's the first thing that I did, is that through awareness, I chose to accept it, to let it sit with me on this, piece of, notebook. Plus, it's a safe space for me to write whatever I could write, right? And I wanted to write. And then the second step that I did, I remember I was going to decide that I'm going to just accept these feelings, these voices, even though they are negative, they're unhealthy, they didn't do any good things for me, right, at that moment. But I decided that I was going to sit with them and observing, still continue through awareness, observing where did those voices come from. And I noticed myself, the longer I was sitting with these voices and the more dialogue that became so flowy, out of my hand on the notebook, i I noticed that still those voices in a deeper level actually came from my inner child and also my emotional self, right? And I think that's what happens a lot of time, is that when I have those feelings of loneliness and abandonment, and that led me to have these negative, you know self-pity, victim, voices and thinking and thoughts and feelings, right, that led me to this spiral. Most of the time, speaking from my personal experience, is actually coming from my inner child. And that inner child every time can have different ages, right? And so that is something that I decided I was going to use my awareness to pay closer attention. So that's even deeper than, okay, first step, I aware that I have all these, negative feelings, patterns, and thoughts, right? And the feeling very lonely and being abandoned, and then blaming, outside of the external environment, right? The second step is actually going deeper to look at where are those voices come from. And when I spot those voices come from my inner child, that little Wei-Jen is, hurting and is wounding and is calling my attention, right? I that is the specific, part of me that I get to pay more attention to, that part of me. Now, once I notice that, okay, this is a part of me, it is still feeling wounded and feeling hurt, feeling unloved, feeling not lovable and not likable, right? Then the next step, so the third step, is to create a safe space and the dialogue, loving, kind, warm, gentle dialogue with that part of me. Sometimes when I get into this step three, create a dialogue and a safe space for my inner child or my emotional self, um, I get to observe, that there sometimes will have an image or pictures comes to my mind. Um, like, how it can be very vivid, it can be very blurry, right? But it gives me a sense of, what is the image, what do they look like, in my internal world. And it also gave me a specific, particular feelings of their feelings. Because, if you remember from my previous video, other people can feel how we feel about ourselves. And it's the same thing that, I can also feel how my inner child, right, their feelings as well. So they gave me a sense of feeling that I get to feel how they feel about themselves. Now, in here, I'm referring to my inner child. And so when I get a feel about, how is my inner child doing, and feeling, right? Then I get to ask a few questions, as a greeting, as a concern, as a way that I care about my inner child. And those questions could sound like, how are you feeling? Do you want to talk? Is there anything that you want to share with me? How can I be supportive here at this moment in this space? Whatever am I doing, wherever I am physically, right? Sometimes, my inner child, I don't hear or receive any feedback or response from my inner child. And that's okay. That is perfectly okay. Sometimes I notice my inner child just shut down after I asked my inner child these questions, right? It just, shut down. I didn't get a response, or my inner child is stonewalling me, right? Knowing that is perfectly okay and there is nothing wrong with it. And instead, I have to be more gentle, loving, kind, compassionate, understanding for that inner child, for that part of me. When I don't receive any response from my inner child, what I usually do, and then I will highly invite you guys to do, is just to simply hold the space for that part of you or for that part of my inner child, is to simply hold the space, sit with them, and breathe breathe their breathing. And um you know it's the energy should be very gentle, should be very loving, kind. And because of that energy that I intend to create in that internal environment with my inner child, after some time my inner child can feel that energy that I am creating. It's safe and it's gentle, it's warm, it's loving, kind. There is no certain rules to say that, my inner child has to talk to me or answer my questions or, suck it up at a certain amount of time. So that is the dialogue, the space, the environment that from the step 3 that I want to encourage you to create that dialogue and that safe environment for your inner child, because they are feeling of abandonment and loneliness. And so that is a um, deeper level of what's going on, deeper than the surface level of what is going on. And on the surface level, you are feeling these feelings of loneliness and um, abandonment. Okay, now when you are able to hold the space and then even better have some dialogues with your inner child, right? Whatever your inner child tells you, how they feel, or they're complaining, they throw their tantrums at you, or they're whining, they're howling, right? Just listen and ask, what do you want from me? How can I support you, right? If they make some like certain request, for example, like I need to I need to stay under the sun for 30 minutes. I need to take a walk, right? I need to feel safe. I need to feel loved. I need a hug, right? Even though those dialogue, they are internal dialogue, right? But however, whatever the request that they were making, and then they'll answer your question by asking you what they want from you, always be agreeable by saying, okay, I will give it that. I will give that to you. Because when you are being agreeable, that's the moment they feel that they are being heard, they are loved, and they are cared, and they are being seen as well. So just give whatever they are asking from you, as long as it's not too, out of your limits, that you cannot do it at all, right? But taking a walk, staying under the sun for 10 minutes, play piano, or give a hug to your inner child, right? you can you can do all these things under your imagination, and even better if you can actually do it in your external reality, in your environment. That's even better, right? The point is to reparent that inner child, that love that they didn't get, but they wanted to, they craved for that love, or they are supposed to have those love, but they just didn't have the opportunity to receive because the outside circumstances, right? But the point is to reparent those our inner child. So we get to rewrite the history. We also get to reframe those feelings and those, thought, the old patterns, how the way that we used to think and our behaviors, and then also eventually, create a new experience. And this requires practice and of course awareness and patience, gentleness. And it's not just one time practice and then you will be healed, or you will be you will have a dramatic change. No, it takes over and over and over and over, with the practice. Then you have a better relationship with your inner child, and that frequency of feeling abandonment and loneliness will finally start to decrease. Now, after you create this dialogue and then create the sense of safe space for your inner child, the next step is that you get to, after you gave them what they want, right? And you may still feeling sad. You may still feel like, lonely and being abandoned, right? I the next step is that I would start to take some small concrete actions. This can be maybe draw on your notebook, or play music, just a little small actions, or clean a house, or do the laundry, make your clothes, your bed sheets, smell fresh and clean, right? It's a way to take care of yourself, not just only your inner child, but to take care of this adult you. In this case, will be take care of me. And it's also a way that we express our self-love, right? So there is a nice balance, between the adult me and then also the inner child, right? So do a little bit, routine, make a nice meal for yourself, right? And after that, the last step is that knowing if you're still feeling lonely, sad, and feeling abandoned, even though you did everything that you could do, right? I think the most effective way is to find a way to be at service, right? And this can be, do a little bit of volunteer work, right? And this can be like a private, in-person volunteer work. It doesn't have to, go out and then join a volunteer, activity or events with a bunch of people, right? That can be a way if you have that time, if you have that kind of resource and other people, they need it from you, yes, do it. But if it's, in the middle of the late night, right, that kind of thing, um, I suggest, maybe find, reach out to a friend, right? And then, ask, if they needed to talk, if they can talk, right? And then just listen to, friends who needs to talk. That's another way to be at service, is to listen to other people, their struggle. Because when you're being at service by listening other people, their struggle, let them vent, right? But not receive, but not absorb their energy, right? Just simply be there for them, hold the space for them, as a way that you hold the space for inner child, right? You are actually providing a service. You are actually doing a volunteer work. And then when we're able to help others, right, that is a moment we feel that we have something to contribute. And also, we get to connect with another human being in the deepest level, not just the surface level, right? Because when other people, they need your help, or they need your service, or they receive your service and you provide a service for them, right? It shows some level of vulnerability and authenticity is there. And that can be very scary most of the time to many people. We run errands, we go to work, we take public transportation. People are very can be very protective, can put this mask and facade that everything is fine, I am strong, I don't have any issues, and even though there is issues, I'm handling just fine, right? So being a service is a way to connect with another person. Now, the other thing that I would say to connect with another person is that when if you don't find the opportunity to be at the service, right, then ask other people their service. This can be, be vulnerable to connect with old friend, new friend, you know, or your current friend, right? But the most important part is to be vulnerable and use your vulnerability to connect with another person wisely, right? I say wisely is because not everyone not everyone deserves your vulnerability. Not everyone deserves your trust if they haven't earned your trust, your vulnerability yet, right? And how do you find that? How do you feel that whether or not this person has potential to allow you to share your vulnerability with them? Well, usually your intuition will tell you. If you feel that your intuition, your gut is screaming at you, then that's probably not a good idea, or not a good appropriate time or moment yet to share your vulnerability with another human being, right? And here, what I mean by sharing your vulnerability with another person, I don't necessarily mean that you have to let everything out, to let your struggles completely be honest and transparent with, to let another person know, right? uh, there is a very delicate area, very delicate fine line there. You simply express what troubles you, but you may not want to go so detail about it, right? And so you just let other know that you're you're having a little bit hard time, and how grateful you are, for having them to hold the space and then listen to you. So that's kind of the vulnerability that I'm talking about, is that you don't vent, you don't unload everything on another person unless they invite you to do so, right? Then you can have an option. But being vulnerable is also show that your strength, your real you, your authentic you, your imperfect you, right, in front of another human being, or on the other side of the phone call, right, if you're on the phone. So that is kind of that vulnerability that I'm talking about here, right? And of course, when you do that, you want to do it wisely, right? You don't want to just, blind trust people and then unload everything, right? So that is what I'm talking about. Now, the final step is that even though you've done all these things, right, and you may still feel heaviness and lonely and feeling of abandonment, right? Knowing that it is perfectly okay to have these feelings, because you know why? Because feelings change. And the most effective way to allow feelings comes and goes and change, moment by moment, is to go through those feelings, to sit with those feelings, to really pay attention, your undivided attention, loving kind and patient gentleness to those feelings, because those feelings usually come to you, they have a message and they need something from you. So knowing that is okay to still have these feelings, and they may come back after some time, right? There's nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with your inner child. There is nothing wrong with having those feelings, right? Because we're all human beings, and the biggest part that we have to um, allow those feelings to sit with us and to welcome, invite those feelings come and go, is to be completely radical acceptance. Accept this is part of us, even though, we can love ourselves however we want today. We have that ability to take care of ourselves however we want because we are not that child anymore, right? Even though we have those abilities, still there is a part of the inner child that needs us to reparent, that needs us to nourish them sometimes when they come to us. So that is, something that I want to share with you how I went through and then handle with my loneliness and abandonment these days, ever since I started my spiritual awakening journey. And then I joined some retreat program and learned the proper way tools, healthy tools to deal with my abandonment and my loneliness, right? I'm not here to, you know I don't claim myself or intend or attempt to, you know paint this picture to you guys that, ever since I started my spiritual awakening journey, seeing so many hours of therapist and go to this retreat program, right? I am perfectly fine and I am healed 100%. No, that's not my purpose to be here. My purpose to be here is to be at the service by sharing with you guys how I face all these difficulties, these challenges, because they are real. And and also, I never know who needs to listen to these reminders and these wisdoms and sharing and strength and hope. So being part of the service, for me is to share my story with you from a victim consciousness, from a victor consciousness, not the victim consciousness, and lead by an example. So that is something that I want to share with you guys. I hope you find this video is insightful for you. If you like this video, feel free to like my video, even share with others, leave a comment, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe my channel. I really appreciate your time and your energy to watch my video today, and I so look forward to seeing you in our next video. Until then, have a fabulous day and namaste.